Fascinating. Well, Hike, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. And I want to begin our conversation with living through the last 3.5 years. How did you get through the pandemic, and how did it subsequently change you?
Joe, pandemic is actually one of the biggest blessings that happened to me, my family, and my business. I always preach on the business part of things where your job could be the thing that makes things better for you in your personal life, or it can make it worse. So
Yeah,
when the job gets better, other things get better. And I tell a lot of my peers in business, you never want to be the person that comes home and has the famous argument of who had the worst day.
yeah,
I think that that is a major problem, and your job is the longest thing you do. So if you can make it into a good one, it's marriage counseling, it's a reset, it's a place to experiment and get away from some of your personal issues. And then when you come back, you tend to handle those better, right? So it made my job a lot better. As in, I learned to use technology. Production numbers more than tripled, team size more than tripled. Everything got so much better, and I was able to now delegate better, hire better, create more leadership within my business space, hire outside the state, have customers outside the state. So a lot of those things made my personal life better too, because now I have more time. And one of those things where you either have money or time, it
yeah.
actually helped me have both.
So let's get a better handle on what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. And one of the kids curiously looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I help people protect their money. So if something bad happens unexpectedly, as in a house burns down, car accident, somebody dies or gets hurt, I make sure there's a paycheck every month to make sure that family's financial picture is in good order.
So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade? What was your dream?
My dream in third grade, to come to America and pursue the American dream.
Yeah. So when did that happen?
I actually came here when I was 13. I
Okay.
grew up in Armenia. Uh, don't know if you might know much about the economy there. Not much middle class. You don't really have nice cars, not nice homes, big project buildings, no electricity. So to me, the idea of what Hollywood was prescribing America to be looked amazing. You can own a home, have a couple of cars, and have a stable job. I'm like, wow, I want that. So
Yeah.
later, ended up coming a few years after that, we ended up coming to Washington.
I actually just interviewed a musician from Armenia, and sh during 2020, she wrote music. So personally, she was in Boston. She was going to the Berklee College of Music, but she was writing music about the Civil War that was going on back home. So she was kind of torn between these worlds. So it's weird because this was just 2 or 3 days ago that she was really delving in to her roots
Mm.
and her history and what it was like to kind of coming to America and get to that point.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. Small world. Two
Yeah.
Armenians for you back to back like that, huh?
Yeah, it's wild. So, what kind of culture shock was it? How did you feel coming here? How did that all work for you?
Certainly it wasn't what Hollywood described. I know a lot of immigrants are like, come to America, you can be an overnight success. It's not how it works. I,
Yeah,
I I think Hollywood does a very poor job describing how much we have to work. And when you come from outside cultures, a lot of rules and regulations and laws are built almost to suppress. So we're taught to not like the governmental rules and regulations, right? So we tend to not play well with rules when we come here. So a lot of us get in trouble. We push the envelope, right? So when we learn that lesson really quickly, and America also has big consequences. You can't tip the police. You can't just get your way out of things by just having money either. So I had to learn how to play nice and how to not go against man's and God's laws. And I had to learn that actually it's a lot more hard work than you thought. It's not just you come in, you take a acting lesson, and you become a Hollywood star. That's just not how it works. Or you become a professional athlete. It's a lot of work. So it is one of the hardest working countries out there. So we quickly had to adapt. So the culture shock to me was it's a grind. Like you wake up early, work out, get in the right mood, long hours in the office, and don't make excuses. Quit complaining about what you shouldn't be complaining about. So the it was different. Also, I stood out like a sore thumb, Joe, because I didn't speak language. I was the only kid in school who needed a tutor to understand what was going on. It was very embarrassing. Rough, but I also call it school of hard knocks. I never finished college, but I've got a PhD, poor, hungry, desperate degree
yeah,
from school of hard knocks is what I call it. So I learned things the hard way.
yeah, for sure. So, talk to me a little bit about this path that started, that came to America. You're obviously highly driven. You're successful. What were the seeds that were planted in you to become who you are today?
I mean, from 13, I was thrown into working with my dad because making sure the extra $100 a month we were making was necessary to send back home. Because my brother, my mom, my sister were still back in Armenia. I didn't see them for 7 years. And during those 7 years, there was no option of not sending anything back home because they had to eat. So the responsibility you give a 13-year-old to feed a family at that age really, I don't want to say messes you up, but in a way gives you some kind of a childhood trauma. And I'm
Yeah.
sure I have PTSD. That's why I think, people sometimes call me a little too competitive. I might be doing a little too much, but I think deep down inside, if a psychologist sat with me and asked me questions, it goes back down to, I don't want to be a 13-year-old boy again who needs $100 to make sure mom eats.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that that was a piece that gave me almost pitbull like grip on business. I wanted to do everything what every successful person does. So I started reading a lot of books, self-educating. We had no money for me to go to college. So I just kept reading and reading and studying billionaires and millionaires. And I'm like, what are some of the things I can do that they're doing? So instead of copying, some of their conditions, which is I don't need to dress like them, I don't need to buy their car, I wanted to be somebody worth something that the results followed, as in I want that house to be the result of who I am. I want that car to be the result of who I am. And I started copying their mindset. I started running marathons and triathlons, and I started a business. I implemented the lessons of delegation, and things slowly and surely got there. And I think a valuable lesson from that was conditions never come before the mindset. So there's certain things you want in life, work on you first.
Yeah. So who was a hero for you? Who was an inspiration?
My father,
Yeah.
man, he's missing four fingers on his left hand. And many times he would come home from his construction jobs because that's all you can get. You don't speak English, right? You go to a construction job, you can do hard labor, and he would come home covered in mud and dirt and paint. And so he would give me his favorite compliment was the manager or the superintendent of the project we're working on to build or construction or remodel was using me as an example. Look at Yuri. With one hand, he's working harder than all of you with two. And that was a superhero power to discover through my father, seeing how hard he had to work for less than minimum wage. I mean, we had no paperwork, so he worked for cash. He was getting nothing, a couple of bucks an hour here and there. To me, to know that one of the greatest superhero powers we have is optimism, hard work, forgiveness, kindness,
Yeah.
empathy. My dad taught me all those valuable lessons, not through teaching me, but by showing me. And that was so important for a little kid who needed that, a strong figure in his life when things were falling apart.
So what's some of the best advice you've ever gotten that's resonated with you all these years?
Oh man, one from my father. He said, if you haven't exhausted all your resources, never say you can't, as in try.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, if you keep looking for negativity in people, you'll be left without friends and family.
True.
And lastly, this is not from my dad. This is, I think I got this on stage from somebody. Um, to live in fear is to live in the future. To live in regret is to live in the past. To live happily is to be in the moment, which is why the moment is called the present. It's a gift. Um, Too often we're worried about what might happen, especially with some trauma years. I'm worried about ever getting back to where I used to be. And sometimes I relive the past too much, as in, could have, should have, would have, the mistakes, the tough lessons. But in reality, our past is what makes us who we are. So it builds superpowers like gratitude and gratefulness. And, sometimes we're too fear driven, thinking about retirement and the problems that are not going to happen. And I read a statistic somewhere that said 98% of what you're afraid of is not going to happen. Only two will. And you're actually living with those two today that you were afraid of yesterday, right? So reality is, don't take away from the biggest blessing you have, which is your moment.
Yeah.
Once I really dove deeper and had some conversations with my mentors and friends about that quote, I'm like, man, that's one of the greatest hacks of life, just to teach yourself to be in the moment.
That's it. That's beautiful. So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Oof, that is a great question. Kobe Bryant.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. His work ethic is very inspirational to me. When I remember, one of the interviews, he was talking about how he would show up early before everybody else. And if somebody would show up before him, his goal was to make sure that he shows up before them next day again. Um, and to me, I really thought that Kobe had, and I think main reason why I'm even wanting to meet with him would be the fact that he got taken away from us.
Yeah.
His work ethic, getting around people who are that hardworking is very contagious. Because also getting around people who are lazy is very contagious too. And I feel like society right now is full of entitled, lazy people who are just making excuses and blaming others for their problems. That impacts me. So once in a while, I need to get around freaks like him to be able to be like, it's okay that I'm doing more than most, because I think that's what life is about. Just the more you do, the better you do. And I'm noticing a significant pattern among some people that I know who are, you know, have a little bit more anxiety than most, a little more depression than most. They're a little bit less successful than most, are the ones who do less.
Yeah.
As in, they're finding they have like a German Shepherd. When you don't keep them busy, they start digging holes in the backyard,
Yeah.
right? If a man is not kept busy, we start digging holes in our backyards. It's not like mentally, like, what is the problem? We look for issues in our marriage, issues in our business. In reality, if you stay busy, somehow indirectly those problems solve themselves.
You know, it's weird. Throughout my life, I've always noticed that people that are not working, they cause the most drama, the most issues, the most things get unearthed that are unnecessary. I've noticed that. And it's that inactivity. It's just finding things to just illuminate that just shouldn't be illuminated.
Well, anxiety, depression, boredom, none of that is what we're used to. I mean,
Yeah.
for thousands of years, we had no time to get anxiety and boredom. Like we
Yeah.
were busy, right? And even if I was watching this documentary about a man, he's a marathon runner, went to Africa to follow some of these tribes who still lived the way they lived thousands of years ago. They still
Yeah.
wake up early, they go hunting, they're like ripped, they have six packs, they are, you know, they're covering like sometimes 40, 50 miles a day. And he's like, I couldn't keep up with those dudes. I run marathons. I couldn't keep up with them. And I was trying to, you know, we were talking to them, and a conversation of suicide and depression came up, you know, like sicknesses and stuff. And he goes, I was trying to explain and had an interpreter translating the language. And I'm trying to really figure out a proper way to explain what's the result of somebody being depressed. And they were laughing. They're saying, what do you mean you're not happy with life?
Yeah.
These people have least amount of stuff. They have no electricity.
Uh-huh.
They don't know if they're going to catch food today, but they're always smiling, always happy, and they can fathom the idea of not being happy.
Yeah. I remember interviewing a musician that did a lot of relief work in Haiti, and Haiti has the lowest suicide rate in the world. And he said when he talks to people over there, their quote is, "We don't have time for all that. That's just
Yeah,
it." You know,
yeah,
there's just
yeah.
too much going on, you know.
Busy is a good thing, but also you have to be conscious. The book that I ended up publishing, the Power of Mindset, Joe's. I wrote about the four pillars of success, and I talk about the balance. Like it's more about balance than anything else between family, fitness, finance, and friendship. And during certain times in my life when I was focusing on fitness, yes, I sacrificed some time with my business and my family. Right, so it's almost like these uneven scale where you just work on the biggest monkey on your back that year. So every year I'm like, okay, this year I'm going to try to get my marathon to next level. Next year, okay, I'm going to make sure I spend more time with my family. Year after that, I'm taking the business to the next level. And it's always it keeps things exciting, but I've also realized it's those four: family, fitness, finance, and friendship. And realistically, it's never perfect, but as long as you're healthy, busy, you're happy.
Yeah. You're talking to a Libra, so I always that intrinsic equilibrium just exists within the center of me. I get it. I totally get it. Because you really do. When you look at life, like, yeah, it's about balance. I mean, not everything's going to be exactly where you want it to be, but you're just kind of trying to make it all come together and make sense because everybody needs that time. You need that time too to parlay out, to be
Mm-hmm.
satisfied. So, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
interesting. So, of all of the things that you've done professionally, what's one of your best success stories?
Oh man, best success story. The thing I actually told this to my team. I said, you set aside the cars and the money, everything else. The thing that I sleep as far as success, business success, specifically business speaking, when I'm seeing the people that I've hired who were broke, who couldn't do, you had no hope in life, but I got them to a point where they're now making a six-figure income directly working for me, and now they're buying investment properties. As in, they have a place, they're buying places to invest into. I felt like I'm making such a big difference. So to me, if anybody asks, like, how do you measure success in business? I'm like, well, how well are your employees doing? If your employees are buying investment properties, you should feel successful.
Yeah.
And that was the point where I'm like, okay, I think I made it in business.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a 20-year-old version of you. You've been in this country 5, 6 years, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you impart on your young version?
Ooh, that's a good one. Really good question, Joe. Stop rushing things.
Yeah.
Stop rushing things. Some of the most valuable lessons absolutely need to be multiplied by time for them to matter. I would always be like, but I need to be the youngest. I need to be there quicker. And I've seen too many people rush to do the thing that should have waited 5 more years. and it will fail. And if you do it maturely and in the right way, and you got the right amount of muscle to lift this weight, you will not hurt yourself. But if you do it without the right muscle, which takes time to develop, that weight will injure you for 10 years sometimes.
Yeah. So of all of the things that you've done personally in your life and professionally, what are you the proudest of?
My family. I, I it took a while to realize that my most favorite thing is to be home with my wife and two boys and hang out and have a good time and be in the moment. And that, a lot of people have families, but I think the joy I get out of it is rare. I don't necessarily notice that in every family, but I have it. It's weird. It's rare, and I cherish it more than anything.
So what do you miss the most about your homeland, and what do you like the best about living in Seattle?
You know, I we went back 8 years ago, and it just reminded me, people are still poor. It's still difficult there, right? Um, but I do miss feeling less lonely, as in there's more people like me there.
Yeah.
Culturally, they like the same food, sound the same, speak the same language. Um, I didn't miss the I didn't miss the fact that there's not much opportunity there. You can't just work your way up. You have to be connected, know people, bribing system, right? It's more connections than actually who you are. Here, it's more of who you are. This is why I like about America. You can truly build a dream by just your own work ethic and don't go against man's and God's laws. Outwork most, which you can easily outwork 99% of people here. You can, and it's not that much more deep to be in the top 1%. In other countries, no, it's the connections, it's the people you know, it's the family you're born, and I don't like that. Like, you have to win a lottery to succeed. Here you can make your own. So that's what I like about America. The dream is very much still alive. I live it every day. And for somebody who says the dream is dead, I'm like, well, why don't we have a conversation? Read my
Yeah.
book.
For sure. For sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, everybody, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
My perception. It's a good. That's another good question, Joe. I look out for others. I would say, if there's a analogy, I could be considered the brick wall, as in if somebody needs somebody to really back them up, to be behind them, to be a good foundation, I have people's back like no one else.
Yeah.
So I think my perception is Hike can be trusted. If there's something we need, that's who we call. And yeah, I've always wanted to be that person. But I think you have to be a person of values, and you have to have your reputation. You have to have success stories that have you actually done that, or is that what you want to do? Me wanting to be that isn't enough. I have to represent it through the way I've handled my family, the way I've pulled my family members, brothers, sisters all along, my friends, the way I've pushed my team to get to the next level. So in reality, I think I would be that stable person that people think of whenever they um, truly want somebody to back them up and help them out.
So let's say we get off this call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go back in time and see one event in human history. Where are you going? What do you want to see with your own eyes?
What do I want to see? I would actually really be curious to see the moment when Armstrong landed on the moon
Yeah.
and what was happening here in America at that time. That would have been a cool experience.
Dude, yeah, I would love to see that too. Because my dad was taking pictures of the TV and there was Euphoria, and you kind of see some shots in movies. That's a great answer. I love that. I've never
Well,
heard
well,
that.
I'll connect it to something else because the first man in space was Yuri Gagarin.
Yes.
First man on the moon was Armstrong, right? And in the 50s, Yuri's name was so popular in Soviet Union, every third kid was named Yuri.
Uh-huh.
How do I know this? My father's name is Yuri.
Yeah. Yeah.
My middle name is Yuri now at this point, right? So to us, man in space, like, you're a hero. So I grew
Yeah.
up in a generation where, like, most of our dad's names are Yuri. One of my best friends' father's name is Yuri too. So all the Soviet Union names got very, again, who is the first man, right? The first guy to break the 5 minute mile. Forget his name, 1954. He was told that 4 minute mile. Um,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Roger Ballister.
Yeah, right.
Roger Ballister. Yeah, he was told you cannot break the 4 minute mile, and he's like, why? He goes, well, your heart cannot handle that. He goes, watch me. So I'm obsessed with people making history by breaking belief systems.
Yeah.
And first man on the moon, that is a big belief system.
Yeah.
We're talking about a country coming together to pull that off, not just one person breaking a 4-minute mile. So those events of somebody breaking a big belief system, to me, I would love to see Roger Bannister cross the finish line at 3:59:50 something. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. So Hike, everyone out there, if they want to reach out, learn more about you, anything about your world, where do they go?
I have my book on Amazon. It's just called The Power of Mindset. It's one of the things I've been promoting. I've been very passionate about the message in the book that I've discovered as I've been in America for the last 20 some years of my life. As far as finding me, I have social media pages people add me on. And I did start a YouTube podcast station called The Power of Mindset, which is the title of my book. Talk about chapters, principles from the book. I have interviews on there. It is a newer station, so it's growing, but so far it's been getting decent amount of traction, especially the podcast page.
That's wonderful. I love the strength. I love the energy. Thank you, sir, for your time today. Best of luck. Have a great 2024.
I appreciate you, Joe.
Thank you.